What's up, guys? It is Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. It's 1:35 p.m. and this is the Daily Tea. So, today we're going to cover Brics and their plot to take down the US dollar. So, the backstory, right? So, Brics was established in 2009 and it represents the collective voice of the global south with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa as its members. After its establishment more than a decade ago, Brics became the first ever compact, non-Western, intercontinental, multilateral club. It was lauded as a unique experiment to bring together politically, economically, and culturally diverse countries who share a range of concerns and interests with regard to the functioning of the Western liberal international order. Brics has been driven by the idea to challenge, if not dismantle, Western hegemony and bring new ideas on the table for global governance. So let's dive into that. So the who there: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Those are the members of Brics. Hence, B's for Brazil, Russia for the R, India for the I, China for the C, and South Africa for the S. So Brics. And yeah, so they're the main members, but other countries are hopping on board to join and fight against the West. So what's going on? What's going on with Brics, and what is their plan to take down the US dollar? So the Brics nations are looking to dethrone the dollar as the de facto world reserve currency. And this is happening all over the world. This trend is playing out faster and faster. The first domino to fall was the US cutting Russia off from SWIFT and freezing its assets. I believe that was back around like January 2022. So when? So from now until 2025-ish, it could happen then, but by like max 2030, this will play out. I believe Brics will be successful in kind of dethroning the dollar, and a new international asset or de facto reserve currency will step in place in front of the dollar. So why? So when one single country gets the privilege of having their currency as the world reserve currency, like the US does right now, we weaponize it, and we weaponize our privilege as a way to bully the rest of the nations of the world into succumbing to the demands that we kind of put on them. So after a while, these countries get hatred and resentment for that one centralized nation, the US, and our financial system. So what they'll start to do is form alliances with each other and plans to dethrone them from the highest seat at the table. So this is exactly what has been festering since the 1940s, and will be alive to witness the transition from our currency being the sole world reserves currency to a multipolar political, economical, and social world. So what is multipolar or hegemony or unipolar, right? So let's look at it. So unipolar, it's probably like one-sided, right? Is having or oriented in respect to a single pole. So like one-sided. So it's heavily favored to one nation. But a multipolar world is one that has a fair playing field. One that puts every single nation on the same level to compete, and basically whoever can produce the best and the most efficient will kind of lead the way as far as being the nation that dominates as far as productivity goes. So what it means to lead in a multipolar world. This is May 11, 2022. So let's kind of look at this real quick so we get a better concept of what we're talking about here. So what it means to lead in a multipolar world. So by overcoming our fears and creating a brave space for dialogue, we can relate and lead better in the new multipolar world. So in a multipolar world, embracing diversity means being open to opposing or different views, genuinely accepting and learning from them, and facilitating efforts to arrive at a mutually acceptable outcome. The multipolar leader values the organic character of life as it facilitates the evolution of multiplicity in a space where views are voiced, heard, and respected, addressed without power, righteousness, wishful thinking, or naivety. I don't know what that is. But we need to let go of our unipolar thinking or risk the world passing us by, or worse, risk believing that we are entitled to use power or violence to bend others to our will. So that's what's happening with the U.S. We think that we live in a unipolar world, and we kind of bully these nations because we have the world reserve currency, so there's nothing really they can do about it, and we're kind of going into this multipolar world where we embrace everybody's perspectives, different views, and we start to really critically think and reflect upon other people's teachings, and then we can take that and we can facilitate an effort to arrive at a mutually acceptable outcome. So let's keep going here. So how are they going to do this? By utilizing blockchain technology and distributed ledger systems, these countries could issue their respective local currencies as digital currencies upon one common shared distributed payment platform. So to bridge these local currencies for foreign exchange conversion purposes, they're planning on circumventing the dollar, which is the norm today for international trade, and instead by using a digital bridge currency as a new unit of account, an NUA, which will likely be backed by a basket of commodities, ultimately making this new unit of account one of the most sought after currencies out there, since it will be backed by real world tangible commodities and traced and authenticated via blockchain distributed ledger technology, DLT. With that being the case, the dollar would lose its role as the main international payments for goods and services, and this new digital unit of account will eat up the market share of the dollar. So that is what they're going to try to do. Back in February 28th, 2022, so earlier this year, I'd made a Russia sanctions and Brics deep dive. So let's kind of pick out some videos in here from the past and then bring it to the future and see how things kind of played out. So let's dive in. Like, we're calling this out. Like, the people that in interviews I'm going to share with you today, and just like what I share in Agartha as far as like the people that I show, as far as the interviews we watch in there, and as far as like the people that I mention and what to look for and who to look for and why. It all just got confirmed today. It all just got confirmed. The whole world, and I'm going to go to my tweet because I have to go to my tweet because I just got to say it. Nobody was talking about Swift months ago. All of a sudden, it's the topic of discussion for the world stage. Stargate, light years ahead of the narrative. Facts. Despite some initial reservations, the European Union appears to be closing in on an agreement about restricting Russia's access to the SWIFT banking system. So I came across this, the World Gold Council. So we already know a lot of central banks have been buying up a ton of gold, especially in the eastern parts of the world, China, Russia, all over there, India. And yeah, so you see a gold in a multi-currency reserve system. See, talking about Bretton Woods. So they're saying maybe a multi-currency system is next. If you remember Agartha, the first mission, talk about the gold standard, Bretton Woods, and we talked about the US-based system with flexible foreign exchange rates, and we talked about all this, and they laid out a potential multi-currency system. So this is what the new Bretton Woods moment is what's going to be. And so we already identified that to be the case when we speculated in Agartha the new Bretton Woods moment, and we pulled up proof as well too. So we can see over the last 15 years, the world has witnessed the center of economic gravity shifting from west to east, signaling a rise of new economic powers. Shift from west to east. And we've already kind of reached that completion cycle for the west, and now we're shifting for the power to be handed off to the east. So in line with this shift, there has been a gradual transformation of the international reserve system, which may eventually become a multi-currency reserve system, with the US dollar, the euro, and the renminbi playing the role of the main reserve currencies. Such a transformation is a complex process that is likely to fuel uncertainty and could trigger crises. The 2008 financial crisis and the subsequent and seemingly lasting slowdown in world growth was the result of the repeatedly emphasized shortcomings of the current monetary system. The role of official reserves. The ultimate goal of the international monetary system is to facilitate international trade, cross-border investment, and the reallocation of capital between nations. Consequently, according to the IMF, central banks maintain reserves for several purposes: to support the monetary and exchange rate policies of the country, including via interventions in the foreign currency markets, to provide liquidity assistance to banks during times of crisis or limited access to liquidity, to boost the confidence of the market in the ability of the country to meet its external obligations, to demonstrate the backing of the currency by foreign assets, and to maintain a reserve for national disasters and emergencies. The reserves are mostly maintained in those currencies that ensure that available resources are available for meeting the above objectives. the above objectives, and in such assets that can rapidly be converted into liquid assets. While almost all countries regularly disseminate data on the volume of the reserves, details on the structure of reserves are confidential. The IMF releases aggregate quarterly data on the composition of foreign reserves, distinguishing between holdings in US dollar, euro, pound sterling, Japanese yen, Swiss franc, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, and other currencies. The data are published for the advanced economies and the emerging developing countries in aggregated formats so as not to reveal individual country information. The Brics economies alone have more than doubled their share of global GDP, so they're catching up. Because Brics nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, creating Brics Pay as a cloud platform accessible via smartphone to avoid US dollar trade. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa are all on board with, this is the excuse. There needs to be a problem reaction solution to implement something of this type of magnitude. There needs to be a distraction. So the Brics grouping of countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are creating a single payment system, Brics Pay. Look at that, Brics coin. As part of the drive to establish a common system for retail payments and transactions between the member countries. These nations, all among the world's leading and most powerful emerging markets, plan to introduce a special cloud platform which will connect their national payment systems. An online wallet will be developed with access to these payment systems, which will also include mobile apps similar to Apple Pay, which can be installed on smartphones for purchases in any of the 5 Brics countries, regardless of which currency the payment and the money in the account of the buyer are denominated in. That means that nationals of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa will be able to use their own national currency as a direct basis of exchange for external payments. This is being seen as a major step on the path to de-dollarization and decoupling from the US-controlled global banking system. China and Russia in particular have been highly critical of the US de facto use of global payment systems, which have been used as trade and sanctions weapons to either inhibit or punish nations whose policies do not fit with those of Washington. Both have been actively seeking for some time now to de-dollarize their trade, and the Brics Pay system is a major step in that direction. The Brics nations have also been examining the possibility of developing a Brics cryptocurrency. Innovative systems like Apple Pay, Samsung Pay are already popular in China and India, have recently appeared in Russia. In order for settlements in national currencies to bypass the dollar, the People's Bank of China, who I already showed you, met at Ripple's headquarters in California in 2015 to discuss central bank digital currencies. They said the People's Bank of China will open lines for currency swaps. It kind of sounds like opening trust lines with airdrops, right? Because that's exactly what the distributed ledger and XRP ledger does. It's a distributed ledger that easily and is set up specifically for banks to do these trust lines and currency swaps. So when they say this verbiage, I'm like licking my chops. This is exactly what we do when we set airdrops, and we set trust lines of the airdrops. So we'll open lines for currency swaps to partner banks to support the exchange trade in yuan in regional currency markets. Similar lines will be opened by central banks of Brazil, which we already got confirmation of. Russia already got confirmation on. India, confirmation going live in April 1st. And South Africa, who I believe is already live. Keep in mind, let me just mark that right there, because this is back in 2019. I forgot to mention that. This is more than 2 years and 9 months ago. No, it's about 2 years and 9 months. So this is coming up on 3 years, and this is about to play out. We're seeing it right now. So in these instances, a settlement mechanism based on a basket of currencies of the Brics countries and a separate financial infrastructure will appear. This in turn will support the diversification of the global financial system and currency multipolarity. And that's funny, that word, Bank of England, multi-currency, polar, hegemonic currency. I believe I shared this before, and this we'll dive into in the next video. But I want to finish this off because Brics Pay as a contactless transfer system will give citizens of the Brics countries a convenient means of conducting transactions. So let's see if there's anything else. This is beautiful, because in addition, the Brics Pay contactless payment system utilizes the latest fintech to make it possible to successfully compete with traditional banks in the financial services market, with the world gradually slipping into new, old, and emerging divisions, with the emerging regions taking up increasing value in terms of wealth creation and trade. The steps the Brics and others are taking to create and maintain their own de-dollarization technologies and infrastructures are economically viable and will help ensure the independence of the respective countries' policies and economies externally from the political and trade reach of the United States. Deep, but this is 3 years later playing out, and you really just can't believe it. You can't. So that was back in February 2018, guys. So that was back earlier this year in February 2022, guys. So like back then when we were talking about this, and even back in late 2021, we were talking about it in the Discord. I think it was me and Rich, was that it was all speculation. This wasn't like a thing at the time. But now, fast forward from February, now we're in July. That's 5 months later, and now it's being announced. We're too ahead of it, and we know what's coming next is the better part. So like these things are playing out. It takes time for these things to play out. These things don't happen for hundreds of years, and we're going to be able to live and witness through these times. Unfortunately, it's not our country that's going to take over. Our country is more going to fall, be the biggest loser of it all. But we're ahead of the game as far as knowing what's to come, and we know how to profit on it, and we know how to take advantage of this opportunity. So we can win in this multipolar world that's knocking on our doorstep, knocking on our Brics door, let's say. So let's dive into a couple articles here that are new. So more countries knocking on Brics' door, a sign the world needs fairer governance than West-denominated one. So Brics, a grouping of major emerging economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has become one of the trending buzzwords in global public opinion lately. For us, it was earlier this year, and then last year, and even for me, years before. But now, see, it pays to be ahead of the narrative, because now we see this stuff and we're like, we're not being reactive. We've already planned for this, right? So now it's like, all right, what's coming next? And I can't wait to get into that with you guys. But after Iran and Argentina applied to join the Brics mechanism, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt also plan to knock on the door of the Brics for official membership. Sputnik quoted Brics, International Forum President, had said. So you have all these big countries now and well-known countries trying to come in and be a part of the Brics nations. So Egypt, Saudi Arabia, that's oil money, So this is, and remember the petrodollar. The dollar had to be traded for oil. Like, it couldn't be sold or bought unless it was in dollars. That's not the case anymore. Saudi Arabia is laughing at us. I think maybe Biden went over there and it didn't work out, whatever, but they're plotting on America, let's just say. And they're doing it as we speak, and they're playing their hands right. So we need to get ahead of this, because if we're on the wrong side of it, it's not going to be fun. But if the trend tells us anything, it is the growing charm of Brics' strength and values, as well as the loss of attraction in the current West-denominated global governance. Crises have been surfacing on a global level since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and quite a few countries, especially those in the West, are being confronted with crippling inflation, unattainable energy costs, looming recessions, and food shortage. Yet Brics countries have shown much less sensitivity and vulnerability than the US and EU countries amid these challenges. So according to the World Bank, Russia holds the world's largest natural gas reserves, the second largest coal reserves, and the 8th largest oil reserves. Brazil has diverse agricultural products and vast mineral wealth. Their different advantages, plus the promotion of Brics cooperation on food supply and the exchanges of national currencies, have made the group less impacted by the global crises. More importantly, Brics countries have the will and, in different degrees, capability to fix the deficit in global governance. In this regard, Brics has already launched a series of innovations. Take the Brics-led New Development Bank. The initial subscribed capital is equally distributed among the founding members, the 5 BRICS countries. The voting power of each member is also equal based on their shares in the capital stock of the bank. This example, just a tiny part of the BRICS cooperation though, shows that BRICS is a group where the 5 countries are on a completely equal footing, a level playing field, with equal rights to speak, vote, make decisions. So it's nothing like the Western Alliance, where there's always a dominant role who has the biggest say in the bloc, and with a crystal clear agenda, bloc confrontation. So let's keep going here. Okay, so earlier this month, U.S. magazine Newsweek said that when NATO's largest expansion in decades took place, Beijing and Moscow are looking to take on new members of their own blocs, and BRICS was named particularly in the article. By the end of June, The Hill published a headline, "An out-of-touch G7 could lose global leadership to BRICS." We were saying it back in February. We're saying it back in October, guys. So on Twitter, some Western netizens, like internet citizens, I guess, also describe BRICS as a rival of G7 and NATO. It cannot be more narrow-minded to view BRICS in this way, as if for some Westerners, when some countries get together, they're bonded to have a target to oppose. Whatever. All right, BRICS is simply no interest, becoming another G7. Let's see. You can find some juicy stuff in here. Okay. What BRICS is against are power politics, hegemony, the law of the jungle, all of which basically determine that in international politics, only major powers have a say, and small countries must be obedient or even be exploited. Against this backdrop, BRICS calls for fairness and justice and a global governance in which developing countries have their due status and their voices can be heard. They want to bring a balance in the current global order. All right, nothing left there. So big stuff, man. Big stuff. So now let's get into the next thing. So among what I just read, now you see Jerome Powell, head of the Federal Reserve of the U.S., rapid changes are taking place in the global monetary system that may affect the international role of the dollar. A U.S. central bank digital currency is being examined to help the U.S. dollar's international standing. So let's hear it.
As our white paper on looking forward, rapid changes are taking place in the global monetary system that may affect the international role of the dollar in the future. Most major economies already have or are in the process of developing instant 24/7 payments. Our own FedNow service will be coming online in 2023. And in light of the tremendous growth in crypto assets and stablecoins, we are examining whether a U.S. central bank digital currency would improve upon what is an already safe and efficient domestic payment system. As our white paper on this topic notes, a U.S. CBDC could also potentially help maintain the dollar's international standing. Looking forward.
There it is. So now Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt may join BRICS soon. We had just talked about that. Let's see if there's anything else in here. More countries want to get on board with that. Now Algeria considering bid to join BRICS economic bloc. The bloc includes Russia and China as well as other countries that make up the world's non-Western influential economies. So from that old video that I had showed you earlier in this video, back from February, we had read that Gold World Council article or whatever, and it talked about how the shift from the west to the east, and this happens every like 400 years. That's why it's crazy that we're living through these times. So let's see. Anything here? All right, right here. So the Algerian president's remarks came after Russian Vladimir Putin's appeal to BRICS leaders to form a truly multipolar system. Remember the multi-currency system that I showed you with the World Gold Council thing too? So everything's lining up. Truly multipolar system of intergovernmental relations. And that reminds me, with Russia being a world's like kind of natural resource producer, and like Brazil like with agriculture, and China with the amount of gold that they have, that kind of backs up the argument that these will be backed by commodities, that this new kind of multipolar, multi-currency system, and it'll bring trust back in the system. So the issue of creating an international reserve currency based on a basket of currencies of our countries is being worked out. He announced as the U.S. and its Western allies. Yep. So let's keep going. So nothing here. Nothing there. All right. So BRICS currency meant to rival USD. Trump warns of depression as Kiyosaki predicts bond crash, waits to buy Bitcoin. Okay, let's see. BRICS nations have revealed they're creating an international reserve currency. Analysts believe is meant to challenge the US dollar and the International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights, the SDR. And then, yeah, I don't have to get into all that. So while inflation data in Europe and US has risen significantly higher last month, Russia and member of the BRICS countries revealed leaders in the 5 major emerging economies are in the midst of creating an international reserve currency. Analysts believe the BRICS reserve currency is meant to rival the US dollar and the International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights currency. Things are heating up heavy. Crazy. Targeting the US dollar's hegemony, Russia, China, and BRICS nations plan to craft a new international reserve currency. Let's keep trying to find something here. Nope, nothing. Because they had met at their summit, the BRICS summit, I believe it was a few weeks ago. Okay, here we go. So, yeah. During the BRICS summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the 5 member economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plan to issue a new global reserve currency. The matter of creating the international reserve currency based on the basket of currencies of our countries is under review. We are ready to openly work with all fair partners. Additionally, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia consider joining the BRICS group. Analysts believe the BRICS move to create a reserve currency is an attempt to undermine the US dollar and the IMF's SDR. So this is a move to address the perceived US hegemony of the IMF, the global head of markets at ING. It will allow BRICS to build their own sphere of influence and unit of currency within that sphere. While the news of a reserve currency created by BRICS may be a surprise to some, not us, specific accounts about the member countries countering the US dollar have been reported on for quite some time. But they don't show it in the mainstream, that's for sure. At the end of May 2022, a Global Times report noted members were urged to end their dependence on the dollar's global dominance. Okay, let's see. So furthermore, Putin and other BRICS leaders have been targeting U.S. hegemony and exceptionalism in specific statements published by the media. So the World Economic Forum, the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is like the equivalent for the Western nations. So I want to make sure I keep in mind that to dive into them because we want to know what's going on. Then let's see. Russia and Putin have been saying that the U.S. dominance in the world of finance has been dying for years now. In October 2018, speaking at a forum, Putin said the U.S. sanctioning specific countries, including Russia, would undermine trust in the U.S. dollar. And they've sanctioned and pulled out all stops. So now we're seeing that trust is eroded. And the Russian president noted that most of the fallen empires have made the same mistake. It's typically a mistake for an empire. An empire always thinks it can allow itself to make some little mistakes, take some extra costs because its power is such that they don't mean anything. But the quantity of those costs, those mistakes inevitably grow. And the moment comes when it can't handle them, neither in the security sphere or the economic sphere. So this is what I was saying at the beginning. Politicizing, instrumentalizing, and weaponizing the world economy using a dominant position in the global financial system to wantonly impose sanctions would only hurt others as well as hurting oneself, leaving people around the world suffering. Those who obsess with a position of strength, expand their military alliance, and seek their own security at the expense of others will only fall into a security conundrum. All right, here we go. There we go. So the financial world splits in half. Alternative payment rails, stockpiling gold, and the clash of a robust dollar and ruble. So the strengthening of BRICS nations, Russia fully developed the system for transfer of financial messages, and later the mirror payment system was launched. The same year, in response to an annexation of Crimea, Russia started to stockpile gold in vast amounts. China has been hoarding massive amounts of golds. They have chips, their payment system. Then since World War I, the US dollar has been the world's global reserve currency, and America emerged as the largest international creditor. Fast forward to today, and the dollar is booming against a number of other currencies, and the USD is the most robust it's been in an entire generation. For now, we still expect the dollar to trade on the front foot. There might be a bit more to go, but probably the largest part of the dollar move may well be behind us. And I think that is the case. So let's keep moving here. Putin warns West's current world order is over and a new era is coming. So we probably read most of this, but if there's anything else from here, so like a new stage in world history, he warned, is coming in a speech where he condemned the model of total domination by the West. But no matter how much Western and supranational elites strive to perceive or preserve the existing order of things, a new era is coming, a new stage in world history. He then said that high growth dynamics could only be achieved by truly sovereign states. All right, so we're not going to give up and stay in the state. Well, okay, so let's keep moving. So this is what was back in 2019. Russia says BRICS nations favor idea of a common payment system. This has been talked about for so long, guys. 5 BRICS nations also discussed creating a common cryptocurrency for mutual payments as the grouping was reducing the share of payments in the US dollar. Talking about SWIFT, talking about an efficient BRICS payment system. Yep, SWIFT right here. Yep. So it's crazy how long some of these things can play out for. We're talking 3-4 years for that. You know, so like these things, you can spot them, but timing, you know, it is what it is. When it comes, right? So Central Africa's regional bank urged to issue a common digital currency for its members. This was recent. So the Bank of Central African States has been encouraged by its board members to introduce a common digital currency for the 6 nations. So all these African nations there. The call emailed. It will become the first to introduce a regional digital currency. The board says the CBDC will modernize payment structures and promote regional financial inclusion. So 9 out of every 10 central banks are actively working on their CBDCs. The BIS itself is involved in testing cross-border use cases for many of these projects. We're so close. So key point from Putin's speech, we are exploring the possibility of creating an international reserve currency based on the basket of BRICS currencies. So yep, we know that. Together with BRICS partners, we are developing reliable alternative mechanisms for international settlements. Do I have to pull up Ripple's site right now? We already know what they do. But Russia and China officially announced a new global reserve currency, all the same stuff. So China and Russia are taking their shot at the US dollar. Let's see if we can find anything in here that's different. All the same stuff, it looks like. Yep. So, and this headline came out in 2020, just months before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I think that was in 2021 that they did that. So maybe that's wrong. But China and Russia ditch dollar and move toward financial alliance. Greenback share of neighbors trades fall below 50% for first time. So there's a reason they're stockpiling a ton of gold and how they're hoarding their like natural resources and why they're going to be using a blockchain or distributed ledger common payment system. There's a reason for all this. So what we're speculating, the BRICS nations, they've already kind of came out and now made it public, but what we speculated before is now coming to light. There's things that aren't kind of worked out yet or made public, but here's the prediction. BRICS nations, through some event, are going to go live with their digital currencies, their own local central bank digital currencies, and then they're going to have that new unit of account for international settlements between them. So India could pay Brazil with the Indian rupee. Brazil could pay Russia with their Brazilian real. Russia could pay China with their ruble. And you don't need one sole currency like the US dollar to be the de facto currency of the world's nations. You could have a neutral asset that no central authority or nation is owned by, right? You could have a neutral asset, a digital asset that is a convertibility mechanism between these local currencies to then just go freely flow in and out of local currencies of any kinds. It could be like the Bohemian sand dollar, or it could be the United States dollar. But there's going to be a new mechanism for international settlement. And that is going to change the game as far as freeing up capital, and it's going to change the game as far as the international role of the US dollar. There's not going to be an international role for the US dollar like there was before. So whatever that currency is or that mechanism that's going to soak up all that value is going to balloon. And I think we have an idea of what that is.
Countries are playing an important role amid The report also identifies 10 new paradigms that BRICS nations have created in global governance, the world economy, and sustainable development. A Brazilian policy analyst said the gathering of BRICS countries are playing an important role amid vast changes, challenges, and uncertainties in the world. The expert also said that a meeting between nations of the Global South could help build a new multipolar international system. The report says it is a system that BRICS countries have pledged to make more inclusive, equitable, and representative, with the aim of building a brighter shared future for the international community. The report also identifies 10 new paradigms that BRICS nations have created in global governance, the world economy, and sustainable development.
So a new multipolar international system, exactly what we've been talking about. Unipolar order equals over. Putin says revolutionary transformations are increasingly gaining momentum and these changes are irreversible. He adds that principles of a harmonious, more equitable, socially oriented, secure world order are being developed. Let's hear it.
Все больше и больше набирают обороты, набирают силу. Эти грандиозные изменения, конечно, необратимы. И как на национальном, так и на глобальном уровне идет выработка основ, принципов гармоничного, более справедливого, социально ориентированного и безопасного миропорядка. Альтернативного существующему или, можно сказать, существовавшему до сих пор однополярному мироустройству, которое по своему характеру, безусловно, становится тормозом для развития цивилизации. Модель тотального доминирования так называемого «золотого миллиарда» несправедлива. Ну, почему вот этот золотой миллиард из всего населения планеты, почему он должен доминировать над всеми, навязывать свои правила поведения, основанные на иллюзии исключительность? Она делит народы на первый и второй сорт, а потому является российской и неоколониальной по сути своей. А лежащая в ее основе глобалистская, якобы либеральная идеология все больше приобретает черты тоталитаризма.
He's up to something. And this is back. Actually, let me go with this first. Reserve Bank of India, statement on developmental and regulatory policies. This is for climate risk, sustainable finance. It all plays a role into it. 16 private sector banks, 6 foreign banks in India, 12 public sector banks they did a whole exercise for it. Let's go into RBI. So this is the State Bank of India, taps top banks including HDFC, ICICI, SBI for blockchain-based trade financing project. SBI has SBI Ripple. They're tied up heavy with Ripple XRP. The pilot project right here, called Proof of Concept in industry parlance, will harness blockchain technology where blocks of transaction data are stored in chains with peer-to-peer access to enhanced traceability of money flow. Sounds like blockchain to me. All right, so we had gone through the State Bank of India, and now let's go to the next thing. So, boom, CBDC is on top of XRP. Let's hear it.
To some form of a digital currency. So do you think it's coincidence that we're now at the exact same moment seeing executive orders and mandates come out, and in it there is talk of a coming Federal Reserve digital dollar?
No, it's par for the course as far as I am concerned. I mean, how far along they are, I'm not certain. I have looked into this fairly deeply. There is some talk of going on the back of, let's say, an XRP or some other currency that's out there now that's functioning well and has been basically tested, and then putting a CBDC on top of that. That certainly could be achieved. And if it were, it could expedite how quickly this comes to the fore. I think
So the paths are leading.
So there it is. They could do this all on top of the XRP ledger. Remember that Ripple has a private ledger for central banks to launch their central bank digital currencies. So, all right, we're thrilled to announce another update of our CBDC tracker. We'll cover this in a CBDC only video. This is more Brics. And then what it means to lead in a multipolar world. We had read that at the beginning. So if you wanted to watch that video from before, it's Russia sanctions, Brics deep dive. It's back February 28th. And yeah, it's right there. So I'm not going to keep covering the same old thing. Just wanted to give an update as far as recent developments. So that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.